This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Bryan Kohberger is who we're going to talk about. You may have heard of this guy before. He's serving 4 consecutive life sentences for the murders of Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. The criminal case is closed, but the legal reckoning may just be starting. On January 7th to 26th, the families of all 4 victims filed a 126-page wrongful death lawsuit against Washington State University, the school that employed Kohberger as a teaching assistant, housed him in graduate housing, and paid him a salary while he was allegedly stalking, harassing, and terrifying women on another campus. According to the lawsuit, at least 13 formal complaints were filed against Kohberger during his single semester at WSU. Women requested security escorts. Staff created informal 911 email alerts to warn each other when interactions with Kohberger felt dangerous. One professor allegedly told colleagues that if they gave Kohberger a PhD, they'd hear about him harassing and essaying students down the road. The families are alleging gross negligence, wrongful death, and Title IV violations, arguing the murders were, in their words, foreseeable and preventable. WSU has declined to comment beyond offering condolences. Eric Faddis is with us, defense attorney, former prosecutor. Eric, the families, they're going after WSU on multiple fronts. The Title IV violations, gross negligence, wrongful death. Walk us through these claims. What do they require the families to prove? And what do you think gives them the strongest path to victory, possibly, here?
Sure. So the federal claims regarding education, it might be Title IX, but essentially what it prohibits is an educational institution from exercising knowing indifference to ongoing sexual harassment and actions consistent with that, stalking, things like that. And if that knowing indifference caused some damages, caused some harm, physical harm, monetary harm, something like that, that's one way to prove that. The negligence claim is essentially stating, hey, you guys knew about this information and you should have done something more about it, and you didn't. And a reasonable institution would have done something more. And that intervention could have prevented these deaths from happening. The wrongful death claim is very similar to that. And so that's essentially what they're saying is, hey, Washington State University, you guys had these, I think there were at least 13 complaints against Kohberger, and you did not take appropriate action. If you would have, could have saved these lives. Those are the allegations.
I mean, one or two complaints against somebody, that could just be a character issue. We don't get along. But 13, that is a profound number. And people setting up their own system to protect themselves, that has to scream, holy crap, they are not intervening to help us, right?
100%. I mean, 13 complaints is ridiculous. It's shocking that more severe disciplinary action wasn't taken, and the lawsuit discusses, hey, there's action that could have been taken that might have got Kohberger out of that region, and if it would have gotten him out of the region, does that mean that it could have prevented those deaths? The plaintiffs are saying yes.
Can you go after any employer then for any murderer and go, well, you guys didn't figure out this guy was a murderer before he was a murderer. He was pretty shitty at work. He was bizarre. He was weird. He made people uncomfortable. I don't know. I mean,
Tony, we've worked with people like that our entire lives.
But I mean, yes, but none of them turned out to be murderers, as far as we know. But again, I mean, if you're going to go after the school and say, you didn't see, you had all these warnings and you didn't do anything. Okay, great. That's negligence on the part of the workplace. Nobody from that workplace was murdered, and nobody from that campus was murdered. This is a different school. These were not students at WSU. And again, nobody was killed at WSU. They were uncomfortable. They felt weirded out by the guy. He should have probably been fired. Is it somebody that any of us would want to have on our payroll? Probably not. But again, if we're going, then should we be looking, if we're, for example, the other case we've been talking about, the Tepe case, should the hospitals that he was employed by, should they be sued? if there was a bunch of complaints against him for preventing the murder. He had the malpractice suits again, and why were they letting him practice? I mean, it seems like a really slippery slope to go down of, well, if you had done this, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, I mean, technically, if he would have been, unhoused, he would have lost his housing, he would have lost his paycheck, he would have done this, he probably would have had to go somewhere, or not, or he would have gotten a job at McDonald's and continued to stay where he was and continued to stalk who he was going to stalk, regardless of who was employing him. I don't know. Devil's advocate, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's a serious question that merits real consideration because look, certainly I don't think anyone's blaming these victims' families. I was on Nancy Grace with the Goncalves family recently, and my impression was that hey, they felt they didn't get justice in the criminal system. They wanted the death penalty, they didn't get it, so they got to look to the civil system. You can't sue Kohberger because he doesn't have any assets. You're not going to get any kind of recovery from that suit. So you've got to look at some entity that may share some responsibility that has assets. Enter Washington State University and the lawsuit against it. But are they really, are they morally to blame for this? Are they legally to blame for this? Can they really prove that Washington State University's failures caused this psychopathic murderer who appears to have had this in him for quite some time, caused him to kill 4 people? Or would he have done this anyway, perhaps to someone else? But it's just a lot of questions that linger. You want the families to get justice, but we also don't want to unjustly go after people who aren't responsible.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, why not sue his parents too? I mean, why not?
Well,
I mean, if we're going to go after everybody, why the fuck not sue them too? Your son was a creep. He was an idiot. You knew it. He stole. You even let him go and face the charges years ago when he stole from the sister. He was an idiot. I mean, he really had problems, without a doubt, social problems that were creepy, and most people recognized and knew it. Why the fuck didn't you say, "Come here, Brian, why don't you live in our basement for the rest of your life"? What are you going to do? I mean, at some point, it's like, yeah, everybody's living in this ether with this creep, but it's not everybody's job to stop the creep either. So, I mean, everybody who had an interaction or had some sort of authority over his autonomy in some way, shape, or form, why don't we just go after everybody? I mean, it just, where would that end? And I'm not against holding WSU accountable for letting this go on as long as it did, but at the end of the day, they did fire him. He wasn't still employed at the end of the day. They fired him after the murders, but they didn't know he was a murderer at the time. They fired him for those 13 offenses. So it wasn't like they weren't paying attention.
Why not fire him at 10? Why not fire him at 7?
Why not fire him at 1? But because you can't, because it needs to be a pattern, because you need to show that this isn't just people that are pissed off because he's giving them bad grades. You need to show that there's actually a story behind it, because I would imagine there's a lot of professors out there who have absolutely nothing wrong with them that get a lot of shitty reviews from a lot of shitty students that complain about them. So you gotta, while it sounds like really kind of shocking on the outside here, have you seen the fucking snowflakes in our college systems these days? Have you seen half of them? They're ready to complain about almost anything. So I don't necessarily know. I mean, from a school's standpoint, it probably takes a bit more. And 13 does sound like a lot to you and me. It really does. But is that a lot? I don't know the answer to that question. Is that a lot in a system like that where people are always ready to be the victim and always ready to complain about everything? Just throwing it out there, because I think you have to honestly take a look at it from all sides.
And I mean, think about, let's say that there was some gang shooting in Denver where I live, and that the alleged shooter previously worked at a McDonald's, and the employees thought, God, this guy's kind of mean. He's kind of disrespectful. He seems, I don't feel safe around him or whatever. Does that mean that the victim then gets to go sue the McDonald's and say, hey, we want millions and millions of dollars because, hey, you guys had some red flags and you didn't say anything, and then this guy shot this other gang member? I just think that, like you said, it's slippery slope. Yeah,
I mean, stronger controls on and listening to the issues, because clearly Kohberger had some issues against him. It wasn't like these were all just frivolous complaints. But at the moment in time, at that second, it's hard to know. if you're the administration, it's hard to know what's frivolous. You have to be looking for the pattern. And they found the pattern, and they fired him. They can argue they did their job, that they did follow their protocol. I guess the argument would be at this point is, do you need a better protocol where you fire people faster? That's really what the argument is, because it's not like they didn't take action. They did.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like you said, sometimes the school's hands are tied too. They need to make sure that they're not exposing themselves to legal liability. And, you get a complaint against a professor. Is this a disgruntled student? Does it actually have merit? Is there evidence behind it? Does the severity of the alleged complaint warrant, just terminating somebody and then possibly getting sued in an employment law context? A lot of considerations swirling around these decisions made at these institutions.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from that perspective, because too, if you just start firing professors when they start getting some complaints, you'd probably be firing pretty much everybody. Yeah. And then you'd only get professors that are yes people to the students and not causing any sort of rift. Then nobody's getting an education, because you're there to be educated. You're there to be corrected. And not saying that Kohberger was correcting people or doing it in any sort of well-intentioned way. But there's plenty of professors who are going to give bad grades, who are going to be harsh, who are going to be hard, and they're going to get complaints. So you start building up a reputation as the university that fires a professor the moment there's a beginning inklings of complaints. Guess what? You're not going to get good professors working there either. So then you open yourself up to a lawsuit right there too, without enough story here, without enough evidence. You fire somebody too quick, you're going to get sued from them. So they're kind of stuck in the middle. But again, this is where I feel like, yes, everybody's out for blood. Everybody wants justice here. Is suing WSU really bringing justice here? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm very anti Bryan Kohberger, but sometimes I feel like we're out for the blood, and the blood's already been shed.
Yeah. And, of course, this lawsuit can never make these families whole. The civil justice system is limited in that sense. But how attenuated are we going to get? Like you said, are we going to begin suing the parents? What about the friends? Maybe did he have some buddies to whom he said some stuff and they should have realized that it was alarming and didn't, or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's just, how far are we going to go down this road, which might just lead to a dead end?
Well, and I guess, too, if you're feeling threatened by a coworker, you report it to HR, you report it to your superiors. At what point do you call 911 and say, I'm being stalked, and I happen to know who's doing it? It's a coworker. He's following me to my car. I've texted all my colleagues saying I'm being followed right now. When do you call the police versus just lodging a complaint with work?
Absolutely. When do you? And might a person be fearful of calling the police? Maybe because that's going to result in the police contacting this person. The guy, the alleged stalker, is going to know the origin of these allegations. And if nothing comes of it, which it often doesn't in the criminal justice system, then this guy's on the loose, and he's even more pissed off against him.
And that's the reality of this. Most of these complaints about him, you call the police, nothing would have happened because he wasn't doing anything illegal. He was being weird. Yeah. He was being socially awkward. He was making people feel uncomfortable. He wasn't like holding people captive, in a room at gunpoint. He was standing in front of a doorway talking. We've all been in that situation. That's not a 911 call. It may be mentioned to HR, and HR is going to go, oh, yeah, he's kind of weird, and we'll make note of it, put it in the file. But again, not fireable, not actionable by police. It's just it's weird. And in more cases than not, nothing ever happens. They're just weird, and they go through life being weird, and they die being weird without killing anyone or doing anything necessarily horrendous. I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of, we could have predicted the future if we had done this, if he'd been moved. I don't know. I just don't know. And I want justice in every way, shape, or form for these families. My opinion is I don't know if this is the right outlet for it, but that's what this is for. That's why they're suing. And what we're going to find out in discovery, I think, is going to be very telling. If it's what we're sitting here on the surface with right now, I don't know. I think you got a hard case. But if there's more, and inevitably there probably will be more, do you think that they have what kind of a case do you think they have here, if there is more than what we know already?
certainly there appears to be some documented failures, errors, and omissions on behalf of Washington State University. That being said, they're going to have an issue with causation. They've got to prove that the Washington State University substantially caused these harms, including the murders of these people. And they're going to have to contend with this intervening event of this psychopath who stalked somebody and slashed up 4 people. And defense is going to argue, hey, he's your villain. Kohberger's your villain. Kohberger's your culprit. And Kohberger caused these stabbings. Professor whoever at WSU, he doesn't have a knife. He didn't cause this. So there's going to be a causation issue for sure.
Yeah. I just don't know how you get there. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of emotion in this. And when you have a lot of emotion, the common sense aspect kind of falls to the wayside sometimes, just because you have the one professor or coworker or whatever the heck he or she was that said, if we give this guy a degree or we give him a PhD, we're going to hear about him essaying somebody. Yeah, what a statement. I mean, that sounds like something I would say, off of the cuff, very harshly about somebody. It doesn't necessarily mean it's fact, though, either. And it can't really be interpreted as a fact in a case like this. And Kohberger never was accused of essaying anybody. That wasn't even part of this. He murdered people. That's not what the statement was. So you have a lot of people who said a lot of really kind of wow things about him, but at the end of the day, it's all opinion. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see where this goes. We'll follow it for you right here. Your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube and also on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com. The link is also in the description to weigh in with your thoughts. We'd absolutely love to hear them and continue the conversation off the air. So please do join us there. Until next time, for Stacy, for Eric, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.